Hello everyone, this is Cobalt. This is the next video in my character analysis series for Brawlhalla. Stick around till the end to hear about entering the giveaway to win community colors, emotes, weapon skins, sidekicks, avatars, or even the battle pass, and voting for the next legends. And if you want to skip all this and get straight into the information, there's a timestamp in the description, and don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with the release of your favorite legend. In these analyses, I wanted to focus solely on the character's signatures. Light attack combos are covered much more in depth than I ever could elsewhere and function pseudo-comparably for all characters of that weapon class. So I'm not going to be discussing the general neutral of the character with their weapons unless it pertains in some way to their signatures. Firstly, I want to give clear descriptions of the terminology I'll be using. Startup frames are the amount of frames that happen after a move has begun until the first hitbox of the move becomes active. Active frames are the duration of frames that the move contains hitboxes that can collide with your opponent. FAF, or First Actionable Frame, is the first frame available where your character is able to move again after the move has been started. For all of this data, I use the character's jump to display the first actionable frame. Lastly, On Miss refers to the move not connecting with an opponent, and On Hit refers to the move making contact with an opponent. I'm going to be doing my analysis today on the next voted in legend, Bödvar. He's the first legend of the game, and he has a really cool design as a Viking warrior. He's the son of a Viking woman and a bear. I am not making this up. But he was a powerful warrior who sealed away the fire giant king in a volcano. He then traveled to Brawlhalla himself, kicking down the doors of his own volition. Bödvar's weapons are sword and hammer. In the current metagame, both of these weapons are pretty good. His sword offers quick combos and has pretty good KO confirms as well as knockout potential. Hammer is also really good, offering higher knockout power with a little less speed. Bödvar's stats lend credence towards a well-balanced, all-around character that doesn't specialize in any one particular area. His neutral with both of his weapons is pretty solid, so do his SIGs add to or detract from his kit? Well, let's find out. Let's start with his sword. Sword's side SIG has 22 frames of startup, active frames from 23 to 31 with an FAF of 55. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Bödvar jumps forward with a slash from his sword. This SIG is pretty straightforward. It may be useful as a burst option due to its mobility, but it has average startup and not many active frames. I think it probably would be most used as a burst option or a punish option from a distance. It certainly has its place due to its travel distance, but it's average in terms of frame data, though it can kill at a pretty solid damage range. Sword and SIG has 20 frames of startup, active frames from 21 to 37 and 42 to 46 with an FAF of 69. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Bödvar jumps upward and slashes forward in midair. It has an okay startup, mostly because Bödvar has a hitbox that comes out halfway up its travel distance. It can connect with grounded opponents thanks to this hitbox, offering dual coverage for grounded opponents as well as aerial ones. I like this SIG a lot for his sword, but it does have its drawbacks. It has a really high amount of end lag, so you can be punished pretty hard if you miss, and Bödvar is almost completely grounded before he's able to move again. Sword down SIG has 18 frames of startup, active frames from 19 to 27 with an FAF of 56. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Bödvar remains in place and swings his sword forward in an arcing motion. It has decent startup, and the hitboxes are able to clip jumping opponents if they're close enough, and FAF on it is about average. I think this SIG covers some good space in front of Bödvar and has some decent range coverage in front of him. Next up is his hammer. Hammer has 19 frames of startup, active frames from 20 to 25 with an FAF of 55. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Bödvar slings his hammer forward into the ground. This move has average startup and FAF with only a few active frames. An important thing for this SIG is spacing, since it doesn't hit directly in front of Bödvar, so works for punishing opponents slightly further than a stacked distance. The hitbox on the handle of the hammer can catch opponents closer to him, but if they're close to Bödvar whenever he starts the move, it's likely that they may not be able to get hit. Hammer and SIG has 25 frames of startup, active frames from 26 to 39 with an FAF of 65. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Bödvar summons his bear lineage and slings his hammer upwards. This move has some pretty good hitboxes, but has low startup and FAF. I think its coverage is pretty solid though. It's decent at catching jumping opponents as well as ones trying to land on top of Bödvar. Its active frames are pretty short though, so this SIG I'd say is good in terms of coverage and not in terms of frame data. Hammer down SIG has 26 frames of startup, active frames from 27 to 38 with an FAF of 69. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. Should the move connect, it functions as a command grab with a new FAF of 82. Bödvar extends his hammer in front of him, and should it hit the opponent, Bödvar flings them in the opposite direction. In terms of frame data, this move is also really average, but it has some good range and will function well at ledge for approaching opponents. So overall, I think his SIGs are about average in terms of their frame data. They aren't amazing in terms of speed, and I think that their coverage and speed really accentuate the type of character that Bödvar functions as, being well-rounded and balanced. His SIGs offer him reasonable coverage around him and have good utility. They have pretty good knockout potential and I think balance well with his weapons, so I think that they're useful portions of his kit that can't be overlooked. I think that since Bödvar is the first legend of the game, his well-rounded character attributes offer him a good starting point for most players to try, in a similar way that Mario does in Super Smash Bros. He's a well-rounded character that actually has seen some pretty good competitive results throughout the course of the game's lifespan, and I think that those will probably continue, because a solid, well-balanced core of a character's neutral will always be a good thing. Today's code to put down in the comments is Hiccup, along with your Twitter handle, and if you get that reference, I appreciate it. Tune in tomorrow for coverage on the next highest voted legend from this week. Check the description for the poll to vote for next week's 5 legends. I'll be continuing this once a day Monday through Friday over the next 10 weeks until all 50 legends are covered. So thanks for joining me on this ride. Subscribe so you don't miss the next release of your favorite legend, and hope to see you back for the next one. Once again, I'm Cobalt, and thanks for watching.